Well, of course, I was going to cover this. Black Hispanic New Yorkers who failed the teacher's test strike $1.8 billion in NYC settlement. Failing the New York State teacher's exam really paid off, especially for a Queens man who learned this month he's getting a $2 million windfall over it. Roughly 5,200 black and Hispanic ex Big Apple teachers and once aspiring educators are expected to collect more than $1.8 billion in judgment after the city stopped fighting a nearly 3-decade federal discrimination lawsuit that found a certification exam was biased. It's the largest legal payout in city history. As of Friday, 225 people who failed the liberal arts and sciences test used for teacher licensing from 1994 to 2014 had already been notified they're getting settlements of at least $1 million, according to an analysis of Manhattan federal court records. Court rulings found the exam violated civil rights laws, allowing far more white candidates to pass. And of course, that'll be because at the end of it, they were going, "As that guy, yeah, he's white, he passes, he's white, he passes," and it's obviously going to have nothing to do with the fact that these people just failed the exam. Obviously not. I mean, that'd be stupid. That'd be silly. So I'm looking forward to this article clarifying that for us. The case is expected to generate hundreds of other future $1 million awards. Herman Grimm, 64 of Queens, on July the 5th, was awarded the biggest judgment to date, a jaw-dropping over $2 million. It includes $1.5 million in back pay for time never clocked, lost interest accrued, and other compensation. I've seen this video. This is the one where there's a noise in the background. Other top winners include Andrea Durant, 62 of Centre Maurice's in Long Island, who scored just under $2 million, and the estate of the late Kathy Fay Bailey of Queens, who was awarded again just under $2 million. The judgments are based on what the teachers and teacher candidates would have earned had they passed the test and kept working in the city's public school system. Typically, the further back they failed the test, the more money plaintiffs are entitled to. Under an agreement ironed out in November 2021, during then Mayor Bill de Blasio's final week in office, the city agreed to set aside more than $1.8 billion in funds to pay off the plaintiffs through 2028. Jesus. But the cost to taxpayers is expected to be significantly higher because they'll also be footing the bill for many of the plaintiffs to collect pension checks based on time never worked after they reach retirement age plus their health insurance. So far, more than $750 million in judgments have been awarded to just under 3,000 of the 5,200 plaintiffs. Some judgments are as low as several $100s. The remaining plaintiffs' claims are being assessed by a court-appointed special master who already racked up more than $8 million in fees at taxpayers' expense. The city is also on the hook for the plaintiffs' lawyers' fees, a sum that totaled more than $43 million last year. The payouts have many critics flabbergasted, and it's a struggle to explain how New York City could spend $38,000 a year per kid with such a poor return, but decisions like this really help people understand where all that money is going, said Ken Gerardin, a fellow and Labour specialist for the conservative government watchdog group Empire Centre for Public Policy. When contacted Thursday, Grimm said he was unaware he struck gold, but confirmed the award the following day with his lawyer. Grimm said he's in disbelief, but the money can't come fast enough because he's racked up serious debt on his Queen's home and credit cards. He couldn't recite examples of why the test was biased. Funny that. But Grimm recalled hiring private tutors and studying for it during the early 1990s before failing many times. "I can't tell you how many times I took them. A lot, he said. Grimm said he opened up a preschool business in the mid-1990s but closed it in 2015. After that, he predominantly made a living as a substitute teacher until passing the current certification test last year and going to work as a special education teacher for the city in Harlem. I want to stay as normal as possible," he insisted. "I'm not going to be a millionaire." Arthur Goldstein, a recently retired veteran teacher at Francis Lewis High School in Queens, said that the former test wasn't a good indicator of how well candidates would perform in the classroom, and the city would have been better off resolving the issue decades ago by hiring many of those who sued. Well, he would say that. All of this money for nothing. Nothing, he fumed. "I've been teaching in overcrowded classrooms in miserable conditions when he... Sorry. Overcrowded classrooms in miserable conditions when we could have had more teachers working. Instead, we just have the city paying money for no reason at all. It's ridiculous. One Brooklyn principal said the city was crazy to settle the case. The standards are the standards, he said. It shouldn't be based on what would be easy for blacks or whites to hire people who are not qualified and change the requirements because a certain group didn't pass the test is bullshit. The class action suit dates back to 1996 when it was filed on behalf of Elsa Gulino and 3 other teachers against the former Board of Education, which once ran the city's public schools before it was disbanded by the state legislature to give that power to the mayoral-controlled Department of Education. The plaintiffs targeted both the state and the city, but an appeals court ultimately let Albany off the hook, since the city is the teacher's employer, even though the city argued it had no control over the testing. The case has had a winding road through the court system, including repeated trips to appellate courts. A 2003 trial ended in the city's favour, but the tests were ruled discriminatory in 2012 by the third Manhattan federal judge to handle the case. What was discriminatory about them? Like this is you're saying something quite bad, but you've not realised what it is that you're saying. The City Law Department insisted it pursued all legal avenues before finally deciding to bring the long-standing case to a close. Over decades, we challenged court rulings holding the city liable for a teacher certification test created and mandated by the state, said agency spokesman Nicholas Palucci. Unfortunately, the city did not prevail against these mistaken court decisions, but unfairly burdened city taxpayers with costly judgments. Joshua Sohn, a lead lawyer for the plaintiffs, said the city knew the certification test was discriminatory and failed to evaluate whether a test taker would be a competent teacher. Why were they discriminatory? Were black people given different tests to everybody else, or did they have to take the exact same test as everybody else? Let's have a look. Despite this, the city continued to use the test to deny a generation of black and Latino teachers a fair opportunity to be considered for teaching positions and deprived a generation of students of receiving the benefit of having a more diverse teacher population. Because everybody knows, right? Everybody knows that when your teacher's black, if you have a black and a white teacher, and they have the exact same skill level at being educators, and they teach the exact same thing, exact same curriculum, the class that had the black teacher will be smarter. Why? Who cares? Trust the science. Luz Perez, who walked away with just under $2 million, praised the plaintiff's legal team, because of course they bloody would. I'm grateful everything was solved, said Perez, 79 of Queens. Of course I'm happy. More than 90% of the white test takers passed the 80-question multiple-choice essay and essay liberal arts and sciences test between March 1993 and June 1995, one version of which had questions such as asking teachers to explain the meaning of a painting by pop artist Andy Warhol. But black applicants on average scored passing grades only 53% of the time, and Latinos had an even lower passing rate, just 50%, according to the lawsuit. It seems that they had to take the exact same test as everybody else. But let's just keep reading. The failures resulted in full-time teachers getting demoted to substitutes and prevented aspiring educators from getting hired. Some became career subs, others found teaching jobs outside of the city, and the rest left the profession. Lawyers for the plaintiffs brought in experts who testified that much of the discrepancy in scores could be attributed to some of the questions being culturally biased in favour of whites. In what way? In 2012, Manhattan federal judge Kimber Wood ruled that requiring teachers to pass the liberal arts and sciences test violated the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because it wasn't a proper indicator of better performing teachers. Okay. How does that make it discriminatory then? If they say, oh, this isn't a good measure for this. Okay, it might not have been a good measure for it. How was it discriminatory though? Why were they failing it at such a rate? She sided with the plaintiffs, who said that the test had an illegal, disparate impact on blacks and Latinos, and that the city's school system was liable for making hiring decisions based on its results. The city argued it was simply following teaching licensing requirements mandated by the state and didn't have any authority over the tests. It spent decades fighting the case, causing the costs to further mount, and there's all the payouts there. And that's the end of the article. Okay, so basically, everyone had to take the exact same test as everybody else, but certain groups failed the test a lot more. I don't really need to add anything.